Okay. So we'll go right over the very basics today. So just standing with feet hip width apart, toes pointing forwards, and in terms of distance, it's a nice point to start is if you find that little bone on the front of your hips, you want that bone to kind of go through the intersection between the knees and then over the centre of the feet. And then from there, just letting the mind and the awareness just come down into the base of the feet. And just noticing the difference as you just allow the mind to sink down through the body and feel the ground. Have a slight bend in the knees. And then just try and bring your awareness to the centre of gravity point on the base of the feet. And if you move your hips over to the left slightly and then over to the right slightly, and you just notice the difference in change between the left foot and the right foot. And just be really gentle with this. It's as if just moving a couple of grams at a time away from one foot onto the other foot. Just really finding that point that's coming into the centre between the left foot and the right foot. And just be careful that you're not kind of moving the head or leading with the chest, that actually just moving from the centre, from the hips. And then still just moving from this point in the centre, just drifting slightly forwards and slightly backwards. And just finding that central position. Once you do get into the centre, you might start to notice quite a specific point on the base of the feet. It's kind of like the palm of the foot on both feet. You're just trying to feel that. If you can't feel anything there, don't worry about it. So as we come up, we just want to check in with the hips and make sure that we've got a nice base for our upper body to rest on. So our feet are supporting our knees, and our knees are supporting our hips are supporting our upper body. So we want the hips to be nice and level. So if you imagine your trouser line as a bowl that's completely full to the brim of water, you don't want to be spilling that water to one side or the other side or forwards or backwards. So you want to really find that completely level position. And as you do that, you want to try and tuck the coccyx down slightly so it's pointing down towards the ground. And you might find that actually tilts the hips slightly back. So then the fold in the front of the hips, called the quad, we want to fold that in slightly as well. And when you find that you can do both of those, you notice that the hips drop down about an inch or so. And that helps them really connect into the feet and therefore into the ground. Once you've got your hips nice and level, then you want to just let your belly just let go, let it just fall down, use gravity here, just let that sink into the cradle of the hips essentially. So the hips can now support your upper body, really just let everything go, let it fall down. We're not after beach bodies or anything like that, we can just really relax that down. And as you do that, you might notice that the hips have a tendency to almost like spread out and open out slightly. We want to allow that to happen. So just allowing the muscles around the hips to soften as well. Really spending some time just letting this belly go. Feeling like this weight is just getting released down, connecting down into the ground. So then we want to just send a little bit of focus up through the spine. So just bring the awareness up into the rear crown, and you want to lift that up and back slightly. So it means that will tuck the chin in. We don't necessarily just want to tuck the chin in, because that starts to create a little bit of tension in the throat, which we don't want. But if you imagine almost like a magnet behind the back of the head, and just allow the rear crown to just float up slightly and drift back slightly. Then the chin will be in a much more natural position and the neck will be much softer. With that floating up, it also creates that elongation through the spine. So we've got the coccyx releasing down towards the ground and the rear crown floating up towards the sky. If you've noticed that as we've done that, your center of gravity or tension has risen up into the chest, just holding this feeling in the crown and just letting everything go back down through the body again, feeling the belly fall down into the hips and connecting down into the ground. So now we want to just check in with the shoulders. We want to put the shoulders over the hips. So if they're kind of relaxed and just in a natural position, actually just allow the muscles around the tops of the shoulders and the pectorals and the shoulder blades just to spread open slightly. So they all elongate. And as they elongate, we kind of start to notice a little bit of a dimple in the top of the arm here. And there's a feeling that the under the armpit is kind of open, like there's a ping pong ball or a large marble just under the armpit there. So that will just naturally happen. And then play with the position of where the shoulders are ever so slightly, just as we did with the hips. And just try to feel how you can just let the shoulders fall down, and as they fall down, they press onto the hips ever so slightly. Just that little bit of weight that's in the arms and in the shoulders can connect into the hips. And as that connects into the hips, it comes down and connects through the legs and into the ground. Then once we've connected into that, we just want to think down into the tips of the fingers. So we want to allow the muscles to spread open all the way down the arms, all the way through the palms and into the tips of the fingers. So here we want to spread the palm open slightly. And if you feel the bit of skin that's in the palm here, it doesn't want to be kind of soft and like hollow. It almost wants to be like a drum skin. As you open this up, this kind of spreads and it creates this tiny bit of kind of torsion and opening here. So you want to feel that feeling in the palm. And then think right into the tips of the fingers. So try to feel your fingerprints on each of your fingers. And then again, if you've noticed that any tension has kind of come up through the body, you're holding anything in the body, just really let that go again. Let everything fall down into the ground with an equal and opposite floating up into the rear crown. So anything that's falling down, you can just naturally feel this up rising through the body and up into the rear crown. And we're not trying to stand like statues here. We're not trying to be still. We want to just feel the alignment through the body. So if you need to move, kind of wiggle anything out, shake anything out, feel free to. So now we're going to just bring the awareness into the dantian, to the center of gravity, center of the body, behind the diaphragm, a couple of inches below the belly button. At this point, I want you to imagine just giving it a very gentle squeeze in. And if you can, feel how that connects into the whole body. And then just let it go. So even more than it was before, just let it really sink down and relax and fall into the hips. Keeping the awareness there, just another little gentle squeeze, connecting into the whole body. You might notice the feeling in your hands starts to change, or the feet, maybe in the top of the head. tension that you notice in the body. And then again, just give it another little squeeze. And let go. So we're going to move on to hands up and down. So we always move from the center as a practice point to begin with, just so we can learn to connect and align the whole body. So as we move from the center, we move through the shoulders, through the elbows, and through the hands. So the first move is bringing the hands around in front. But it actually starts from the center, comes through the chest, through the shoulders move to the elbows, and the elbows move the hands. So you get a slight opening across the back, but not a collapsing in the chest. The chest stays open and relaxed. That allows the shoulders to roll forwards. Shoulders brings the elbows forwards, elbows brings the hand forwards. Make sure we're still connected into the fingertips. Then, to lift the hands up to shoulder height, we need an equal and opposite force down into the ground. So first, find the ground. And then from the ground, when you find the ground, you should find the equal and opposite force going up into the top of the head. And then you use that line, and we float up through the body without lifting any muscles, without adding any tension. Keep everything soft, and we float up to shoulder height. Now we want to let everything go and let the body open. So all of the joints open in the body, so the whole body literally expands in every direction, and we get this stretching out into the fingertips. Then, moving from the center, we drop the center, have a little bit more of a bend in the knees. That pulls the shoulders down. So we relax the shoulders, that pulls the elbows down. Elbows connecting to the hands, that pulls the hands down to about tabletop height. Then for the last centimetre of that movement, we want to open up the body again, expand all of the joints, think up to the top of the head, down to the coccyx, down to the ground, out through the shoulders, out into the fingertips, opening up the palms, the whole body opens. And then as we release that expanded feeling in the body, we can stand up slightly, don't rock the legs. Let the shoulders come down, elbows come down, hands come down. Then we open out across the chest and shoulder blades so the shoulders can come back. Shoulders coming back brings the elbows back, elbows brings the hands back. Then release the center, open up the body again. So the body is breathing, we're opening and closing all the joints in the body, allowing the muscles to be soft. So, opening the back, rolling the shoulders, elbows, hands, connecting the fingertips, find the ground, top of the head. Use that line, it's kind of like an elevator shaft. Feeling of floating up through the body, out through the shoulders, out through the elbows, out through the hands. Whole body opens, expanding out through the fingertips. Center comes down, shoulders come down, elbows come down, hands come down. The last centimetre, down to the ground, up to the top of the head, out through the arms, out to the fingertips, whole body opens. As we release that feeling, come back up to our standing position, soften the shoulders, soften the elbows, soften the hands. Open shoulders, shoulders bring the elbows back, elbows bring the hands back. Anytime you feel any tension, just let it go, soften it down. Let it go down into the ground, equal and opposite force creates that feeling of floating through the body as well. So here, really use the ground. The more you find the ground here, find that equal and opposite force coming up through the body. We float up. As we float up, we can expand everything out again. Open up the joints. Sink down. Center, shoulders, elbows, hands. Last centimetre, open up the body, elongate the spine. Release. Feeling to come back up to standing. Open shoulders, elbows come back, hands come back. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit more of this feeling of floating. So same movement. So now it's from the center. As we allow the center to expand and float up ever so slightly, it's kind of like sends this pressure wave out through the body, but without, we're not lifting anything, we're not adding any tension. It's like turning on a tap, and the water comes down through the tap and through the hose pipe and out to the end of the hose pipe, which is the end of the fingers. So this turns on, it sends this kind of flood of energy up through the body without adding tension in anything, just filling the pipes, like there's little hose pipes all the way through the body, all the way out to the tips of fingers. And if you like, you can send it past the tips of the fingers. And it's kind of built that slight pressure up now because the water's reached the end of that hose pipe. Then we just turn that off and let everything kind of drain back down again. Sink back down to slightly lower stance. And then we can turn it back on here, allow that water to come out through the entire body. The whole body has this flowing feeling, the pipes are open, there's no kinks in the pipe in awkward positions, tense muscles. And we can let that feeling go. And that's the trigger to stand back up, soften the shoulders, elbows, hands. Then here we can turn it back on again. Open. Feel that slight pressure through the whole body. Like the body is breathing and opening, and then releasing. Everything's building up, except for the tension, of course. Out into the fingertips, and releasing. Build everything up again, and releasing. So it's always good now, before we move on to the next exercise, just to check if anything's happened. Have the feet moved? Quite often people's feet kind of drift out to this position because they're using a lot of external muscles on the legs, and that kind of pushes the feet out. So just checking in with the feet again, checking where the center of balance is on the feet, checking in with the position of the hips, checking in with the top of the rear crown and the hands, and just checking in with the belly, softening everything down. So we'll move into the standing posture. So here we want to just spend a couple of minutes just scanning through the body, finding the alignment of the body. And my recommendation is to do it without looking. It's quite easy to find the alignment if you've got a mirror in front of you, or if you kind of like look around the body. But you get so much more out of it if you can use your proprioception to feel the alignment. So then you start to notice the difference in the feeling of the body when it's correct and when it's wrong. And when you understand that, it means when you come into the Tai Chi form and some of the other postures, that you can feel the alignment a lot better. You can feel what Tai Chi feels like, and you can use that feeling to guide your practice. So can you feel where the feet are? Can you feel where the knees are? The hips, the coccyx, the quad, the fold in front of the hips, the spine, the alignment of the spine, the shoulders. Of course, the arms. Can you feel how the shoulders connect into the hips, and the hips connect into the knees, and knees into the feet, and feet into the ground? feel the centre of gravity, the line, the vertical line that runs right through the very centre of the body and down into the ground. When we have a nice alignment, we can let go of a lot more tension. So we can keep relaxing the body. So once you've spent a little bit of time just scanning around the body, making adjustments if you need to, having a wriggle, moving out any tension. If you notice anything that needs a stretch or something, you can do that. Then we want to start tuning into the more subtle alignment within the body and relaxing even more of the tension around the body. So we do that through a slightly more deeper body scan. And we always work from the feet up to the top of the head. And the reason being is it's kind of like pulling a bung out of the bottom of a bucket full of water. We want that water to drain out the bottom so that it empties the body. If we think from the top of the head and let the tension relax down through the body, then actually we start stacking up the tension. It starts to feel like our legs are really heavy. It's quite a nice feeling sometimes, but it's not quite the right feeling. If we release any kind of energetic tension within the muscles and let it fall down through the body and it hits another area that is tense, it's not going to be able to pass through that area very well, and it can kind of like almost stack up tension, which ends up being in the legs really. So it's not super good for the body that way. So if we start with the very base of the feet, and again just being aware of where each of the toes are, the heel is, the sole of the foot, where our centre of gravity is in the feet, and just see if there's any tension there that you can just let go of, just dissolve that into the ground. Then move up into the tops of the feet, and just notice if there's any tension there. And just let that fall down through the centre of the feet into the ground. Then we move up into the lower legs, around the shins and the calves. It's the first time we've got to some bigger muscles, so you can always guarantee there's going to be a little bit of tension there that we can let go of. We just want to let go of maybe 1% of what's there, whatever's comfortable for the body at the moment. And you just put the mind into where that tension is with this kind of a will or an intention to let go or to dissolve. And whatever that kind of thing that gets dissolved, that energy that comes out of the muscles that's being dissolved, with the mind again, you just kind of track it down through the feet, down into the ground. So it's kind of like your will tracks down through the body or down through the ground. So we'll move up into the upper legs, again big muscles here. Let go of any tension. Like pouring hot water on a sugar cube, just dissolving that tension down. When you feel that tension starting to let go, you use the mind's willpower to really dissolve it down and track it down to the ground. Don't need to be aware of this, but you're naturally starting to create this feedback loop that as you're coming down to the ground, you're getting an equal and opposite lightness coming up from the ground that's coming up through the body. And because of that, it means we're not collapsing our structure, we're keeping the alignment in our body. So we're not kind of collapsing, just switching off the muscles. We're just finding that little bit of tension that has got an availability to be dissolved out, and we're tracking it down through the ground. So we move up into the glutes and around the hips, the quad. See what's available to let go of. soften. As we soften, you might notice that the muscles elongate, the hips might start to open out slightly, the lower back might start to open here as well. Because as the muscles relax, they stop being so contracted and they just open out. Again, just tracking that release, like a kind of gentle flowing or a wave, all the way down through the legs and into the ground. And we can let the belly go again, make sure we can pull that belly down into the hips. All the muscles around the rib cage. So even here we might notice that the breath is coming to the chest, so we let that breath fall down back into the belly again, so breathing from the diaphragm. As we start to release the pectoral muscles in the chest and shoulder blades, this is where a collapse can happen and this rolling in here. So just be really aware of that. As soon as this happens, it starts to put a lot of tension and weight from the arms into the shoulders, the pectoral muscles. They can all become quite tight. So just make sure we've got the alignment of the shoulders over the hips. So the shoulders are being supported by the hips. Someone were to come behind you and push down on the shoulders, it should go straight onto the hips, straight down into the ground. So middle dantian, or heart chakra sometimes called in different modalities, we want this to remain open. So again, we don't want to close this. Keeping this open, that keeps the alignment and the openness of the muscles all around the tops of the shoulders. We want to relax the upper arms, biceps and triceps, deltoid muscle that's on the top here. This one can hold a little bit of tension if the alignment's not very good as well. So just making sure that you're aware of this. Finding that tension, releasing 1%, 2% of it, tracking that tension down through the body, down to the ground. Through the forearms, wrists, each of the fingers and the thumbs. All around the neck, throat, even the tongue. Sometimes we kind of hold tension in the tongue. And on that point, the tongue should be resting on the roof of the mouth with the top teeth just behind the top teeth. And then just feel how the tongue can fall down the throat. The jaw can be nice and soft and relaxed, and the brow can be, the cheeks and the brow can be soft. Even the cranial muscles all around the skull, you can kind of feel a release of tension through those. Just letting it fall down to the ground. If you can kind of imagine that the eyebrows slightly separate, they move sideways away from each other, that really helps just soften the cranial muscles and open the upper dantian as well. There's a lot more exercises we can do with this, but this is just a nice way of just tuning into the alignment, understanding the body, starting releasing the muscles around the body. As they let go, you start to really tune in with the alignment within the body. If you start to feel any kind of shaking or vibrations or twitching or anything like that, that's generally a good sign. It's energy escaping the body. When you're twitching, jumping, kind of little movements like this, don't try to fight anything. Again, we're not trying to stand like a statue. We're trying to build an awareness and a sensitivity of the body, and in this exercise, as well as tune into the feeling of the alignment in the body. The feeling of being soft in the muscles and open in the joints. The vibration that's in the muscles is the kind of the body's unwillingness to let go of this tension that it's storing, versus the mind's will to say, it's okay, let go of that tension. I've never met anyone who's fallen over in this exercise.
Yet.
Yet, yes. It's amazing how much you can actually release. And you don't have to stand for a long time. This isn't an endurance exercise. You're better off just standing for 5 minutes, but really being genuine and sincere with what you're working on and practicing. And this is only one exercise that we can do in this standing position. There's many, 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 many more.
I noticed that my knees straighten themselves without my permission.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm just finding that. I find that I've come up.
Are their legs locked? They don't look locked to me.
No, they're not locked, but they come up so that they're not. I'm not bent at the knee.
Okay. So okay. So playing with that, feeling the awareness of how does it feel now? Okay, I've got the awareness that my knees have straightened, my center of gravity is lifted up. How does that feel? Then sink down a little bit with that feeling of relaxing down, not breaking the structure. How does that feel? Maybe it's fatigue, maybe it's an unalignment, maybe it's stress in the body, but just be aware of how it feels. If it's fatigue, gently stop the exercise, because we're not building in trouble. It's really important to know. If it's just tension that is still there, maybe you want to spend a minute just really focusing on that area. And that area, working from the feet back up to that area, to the feet back up to that area, and letting it go. Being sincere to the exercise, but without going into, I must stand for 25 minutes, 30 minutes, because that's what Sifu says. It's not the right way of doing it.
I think what's happening is that I drift forward.
Okay.
And my knees straighten.
Okay. So the weight comes forwards.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I need to catch
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And so the tension comes up through the back, perhaps.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Good awareness. So then maybe there's this feeling of releasing down through the back and through the glutes and the back of the legs. Maybe you want to feel the heels a little bit more. So maybe drifting the center slightly back. Finding the heels. So only you can be aware of what's happening in your body. I can see a little bit, but you've got the awareness. And if you can improve your alignment through your understanding and through the feeling that you're getting, then your level will accelerate massively. If I just keep saying, you need to move your weight an inch to this side and a bit there and move this and do, you don't really get the feeling.
Yeah.
It's through just constant practice and sincerity of the exercise where you build the awareness and you build the feeling. And that's the really important aspect here, because then we take that feeling and we put it into the Tai Chi form. And it's like, okay, so I'm doing a brush and push posture, but it just doesn't feel, something that's not aligned. This arm feels heavy, or this leg feels heavy, or something like that. You can then, I know the feeling from this exercise that I practice every morning, every lunchtime, every evening. So, just letting the hands drift forwards, shoulder height.
So gone on my body. I've lost contact with you.
And then we'll just sink down again. So we never just jump out of these exercises. It can be quite shocking for the body to jump out, which is always very gentle. Coming back up to the standing height again. Not locking the legs yet. Opening. Releasing. And then we can stand up. And just gently bring